President Obama has signed an executive order directing the government and companies to share more information about cybersecurity threats. He made the announcement at Stanford University, but high-powered CEOs, including Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg and Yahoo's Marissa Mayer, were no-shows at the Cybersecurity Summit. The heads of those high-tech companies say they want reassurances there will be reforms to government surveillance practices like the ones uncovered by former National Security Agency contractor Edward Snowden. So to prevent further cyber attacks, must Americans exchange privacy for security? That's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you. You can weigh in on our Fox 26 Facebook page or on Twitter. Be sure to use the hashtag Fox26forlife. Joining us live in our newsroom is our Roundup panel led by our Fox 26 senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico. Good morning again, Chris.
Good morning.
So what do you think? Are Americans having to trade privacy for security?
Well, we've been doing that for a very long time, and the answer to the question today is no, because to beef up cybersecurity, they don't have to see what I'm sending out over Gmail. And that doesn't beef up cybersecurity. And I think what the president is trying to say is if we share information together about cyber threats, we can make our own computing safer for everyone. That's what he's trying to say. But can you really blame Mark Zuckerberg and the other people who said, I want more assurances, when we find out the way we did, that the government has been treating us the way it did and looking and snooping at our own private emails. So it's a tough place for the president to be, but I think that the president's attacking this at the time when it needs to be, and we need to work together to find a way to make the internet safer for everyone. Let me introduce our panel. Jerry Bernberg, former chairman of the Harris County Democratic Party. Jackie Bally, our public policy analyst. I don't know why I can't say public policy. We need to get you an easier title, Jackie. Jerry, let's start with you this time. The president got the cold shoulder by some pretty important CEOs out there saying, you know what, we don't trust the government to do this the right way.
Well, I'm not sure that's what they were saying. I think what they were saying is we're still angry at you for letting Snowden tell the world that we'd been cooperating with you. That's what it was all about.
Okay.
And they lost business as a result
Right.
of it when the public found out that their records were being turned over by these companies to
Voluntarily.
Right, exactly. Look, I don't think that you make anything of it one way or the other. I will candidly admit this is an area I know not enough about to opine wisely, and so I shan't.
Well, you have to say something. We have 6 minutes. You're going to have to come up with something. You know, the president, I think, has to do something.
He does.
As the leader of the nation, he's got to do something about a problem that is growing nationwide.
Yeah.
We've got attacks at Target, Home Depot, all over the
Right.
country. Losing.
His statements are very accurate.
Yeah.
It is something that is very threatening. It is something that's very real. I do understand where the CEOs that you mentioned, I do understand where they're coming from. You know, the practices, the revelations of our surveillance practices that came through with the Snowden case, we are very hesitant to do anything. And I think before anything like this happens, we need to look at revamping some of our surveillance practices, and reform has to take place. Also, one of the things that came up is that some of the CEOs are saying, okay, so we're going to reveal our breaches, but the federal government does not. And so there's the trust factor that we mentioned earlier. That is a very real situation, too.
All right. Let me go to, while Jerry's figuring out what he's going to say next, I'm going to go to Sally, who's monitoring our social media.
All right, well, one of the CEOs who was there was Apple CEO Tim Cook. So here are a couple tweets about that. This person says, I think the biggest takeaway of the Cyber Summit was Apple CEO Tim Cook saying that the value of privacy goes beyond making money, guts, and kudos. And then Priscilla says, Cook says Apple makes money by selling hardware, not by selling personal data. And there was a smattering of applause following his comments there. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know what Apple sells list-wise or not, and that's really beyond the issue that the president's talking about, is who's selling what list, is not the issue that the president's raising here. The issue the president's raising here is, can we, in the executive order, let's just talk for a second about that executive order. It didn't mandate anything other than saying we need to work together to find a way to make the internet safer for everyone to use. And that is a good plan. It's a good idea to get started at. Let me ask you this, Jerry, because I know as a constitutional law professor you will answer this question. Are you willing to give up more of your privacy to make the internet safer for everyone?
Probably, because I believe we live in a world where I don't have that choice to be candid with you one way or the other. If I choose to communicate via the internet and via other digital forms, some sacrifice of privacy is an inevitable price to pay. Now, the other thing, though, that I do think is important to keep in mind, Chris, is that part of why this is so complicated is the globalization of the economy. And what our local folks are so concerned about is that if they're required to share information with the government, then it is their international users who are going to balk at that, and they're going to quit using American internet services and companies and providers because they don't want the government to be privy to these international issues that are out there for a whole host of other reasons. About 80% of the customers of Google and others are actually not American.
But the hacking is also coming from those foreign countries.
Yeah.
That is true, but because of that, even though it is an executive order, it's not law yet.
Right.
If it were actually to become law, it would actually conflict with a lot of state laws because of the reason that the many reasons that Jerry has outlined. So that's something else we would have to look at. But again, that goes back to what I said earlier. Reforms have to take place, and this is, I think, the president's way of just opening up that conversation.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I
No.
thought that even though people didn't show up, the president did the right thing in opening that conversation.
I do agree with that. I think the fact that they did not show up, though, still says that they don't trust him and the government.
I agree with that,
Final
but
thought.
still I suggest nobody turn to me for how to cure this problem.
And now we know we won't.